So far, this what if has been on the longer side. This is the 6th part. If you've missed any of the other 5, I recommend you go watch them. I'm not even gonna bother getting philosophical for this one. Let's just roll the video and get into the nitty gritty. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so if you subscribe by sundown, the next time you go into work, somebody will have brought donuts in for the whole office. And if you ring that bell, your favorite one will not get picked until you get there. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Naruto lay there in the dirt. He looked up, his eyes transfixed upon a figure standing before him. The sun shone down through the smoke and debris. Standing before him was Konohamaru, his arms out, his legs in a wide stance. He faltered a bit and stumbled. Perforating his body were 5 black rods, each one originally meant for Naruto. He hit his knees. Naruto rushed over and grabbed him and held him. Konohamaru let out a gasp and a cry. He looked at Naruto. "Oni-chan, it hurts. It hurts." Naruto gripped him. "Why did you do this? Why?" Konohamaru's breathing grew quicker and more frazzled. I don't know. I just moved." His face grimaced as tears rolled down his cheek. His voice was cracking as he spoke. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." Naruto shook his head. "Just stay here with me." Konohamaru looked at him. "Please, don't let me die." His eyes rolled up in his head. Tears began to roll down Naruto's cheeks. Pain looked down upon them both. "Only through pain will you understand." Naruto looks up at Pain, but something's different. His Sharingan has evolved into a Mangekyo. Pain looks at this and feels some interest. Naruto lays Konohamaru down and stands, tears streaming down his face as he looks on. Suddenly, he feels a pulsing pain, and for a second he thought he saw Sasuke standing with him. When his hand pulls from his eye, it's once more evolved. Pain is astounded. Is that much earlier? The 3 ninja walked down the road together. Naruto was beaming from ear to ear. On his right was Sakura, on his left was Konohamaru, the 2 people he cherished most in this world. As they continued their trek down the road, Konohamaru spoke. "So, I'm gonna learn from some snake sage? What's that gonna be like?" Sakura looked over. "I don't know, but you should watch out. Snakes aren't the nicest. Be cautious." Konohamaru's eyes widen. "What, you mean to say they might actually kill me?" She shrugged. "There's no telling." Naruto smiled. "You'll be fine, Kono. I believe in you." Konohamaru huffed. "Easy for you to say. You took the toads like Master Jiraiya. You already know what they're like." Naruto smiled. He knew this was true, but still, he couldn't wait to see what it was like when Konohamaru mastered Snake Sage Mode, or whatever it was. They then came to a crossroads. They stopped and looked to each other. "I guess this is where we part ways," Sakura said. Konohamaru slowly nodded his head. "Yeah." Sakura brushed it off. No matter. We'll be done in no time. And once we are, we can all just hang out. Remember when we used to have sleepovers, Naruto? Well, we can do that again." Naruto smiled. "Bet. Train hard and master it as soon as you can." And with that, the 3 of them began to go their own way. Each one travels until they reach their intended destination. For Sakura, that's Shikotsu Forest. For Naruto, that's Mount Myoboku. And for Konohamaru, that's Ryuchi Cave. For Sakura, it took her about a week to get where she was going. For Konohamaru, only a few days. Naruto is saddened to find that it takes him a month to get there. However, he realizes that he could theoretically just hitch a ride with Gamabunta, so he uses the summoning technique to bring Gamabunta there and climbs on his back and is teleported out. There, Naruto begins his training. Konohamaru ends up reaching Ryuchi Cave just as the sun begins to set. The moment he enters, he's surprised to find it's ornate and possesses the aroma of the night-blooming jasmine. The smell is so strong that it's like a flowery punch to the face. There, he's met by a beautiful woman who welcomes him in. Konohamaru can feel his ears turning red as he looks at her, and perhaps he was grinning a bit more than he'd hoped as he notices this girl is giggling at him. She shows him in. "I'm here to meet with the White Snake Sage. I'd like to humbly ask of the honor of being taught senjutsu." The girl giggles again as Konohamaru lowers his head in respect. "Do not worry, you will meet the sage. But before you do, let's try some hospitality first. The greatest chefs in all of Ryuchi Cave's vast network of tunnels have prepared a wonderful feast for you to enjoy. Would you like to partake?" He thinks for a moment. "I don't know, I'd really like to begin my training." She smiles. "Perhaps you should merely take off some time to relax. Soon the sage will grant you an audience and will begin to teach you. At that point, there will be no time to relax, so now's the time to treat yourself." She holds her hand out to him with the most beautiful smile. Looking into her eyes, it's as if he's mesmerized by her, captivated by the deepness of her soul. He takes her hand and is led to a table where she sits. Food is brought to him as she sits beside him. "Feel free to eat as you wish," she said, and at that time, another girl enters the room. Scantily clad, she begins to dance for his pleasure. A quick burst of blood shoots from his nose and he nearly passes out. He finds his head laying in the lap of his hostess as she giggles. He's in heaven. He's never seen the afterlife before, but if it's anything like this, he's no longer afraid to die. The woman giggles. "What's the matter, Kono darling? Is it too much for you?" He laughs a little. "Maybe just a little. He stops. She's looking down. "Is something the matter?" Konohamaru sits up and looks over. "When did I mention my name?" The woman's soft expression grows slightly more serious before softening out again. "You told me when you arrived." Konohamaru looks at the food and the entertainment again. "And who told you I was going to arrive?" The woman sighed, her expression becoming slightly more disappointed. "I really was looking forward to eating you. You're so small and adorable. I wonder if you taste as sweet as you act." Konohamaru was a little startled. "Eat?" The woman looked over, her visage a bit more reptilian. "Of course, silly. You didn't think we were just gonna let you go. The sage insisted that whoever fails our test we can eat, but only if you fail our test. Sadly though, you passed. At least, you passed my test. Let's see if you have what it takes to make it to the end." She faded away, and with her, she took the rest of the ornate palace. All that was left was the dancer, whose clothes had shifted to something a bit more modest, similar to what the hostess had been wearing before. She beckoned Konohamaru to follow her with a giggle. Konohamaru stood and chased after her. "Hey, wait," he called out. She appeared to be about the same age as Konohamaru. She was playful and almost seemed sweet to a point, but by this time Konohamaru had reinforced his mind, realizing that nothing he saw in this cave was for real. For all he knew, he was right now in some elaborate genjutsu while the snakes were slowly draining his life force. He kept his attention up and kept moving forward. Eventually he's led by her into a room, and the moment he does, the entrance behind him closes. "What's going on? I wanted you to take me to the sage." The girl giggles. "You're so much livelier than the others. Generally, we only ever see old men come through, and they're hard to play with because they're so stiff. So rare that someone closer to my age comes through. I bet you're so fun. You're cute too. Maybe you could just stay here with me forever? I love to drink the chakra from a defeated man, someone who no longer has the will to fight back. It's so delicious." She giggles. Konohamaru looks back at the entrance and finds a stone slab with many holes and crevices in it. Each is a particular shape, a man-made shape. He begins to look around and find stones of the most vibrant colors, each in a man-made shape. "Oh, so you've finally discovered the puzzle. Fantastic. You're so smart, Kono, but solving it's a different story." He begins to pick up stones and measure them to the holes. He fits one into one hole. "That was easy, now do the rest." He begins to search for other stones. For a few hours, he continues his puzzle, all while the snake girl is just floating about, keeping herself occupied while she waits for Konohamaru to give up. Eventually, he makes it to the final hole, but not a single stone he tries will fit. He tries them all, 3 times each. He then kicks the door. "Damn it, this isn't fair. I did the puzzle. This is cheating." The snake girl comes up behind him and puts her chin over his shoulder. "So now maybe you can stay with me. If you do, I promise not to drink you all at once. I'll bite you and leave you in a euphoric dream and just slowly siphon from you over the course of a few days. If you thought the first test was heaven, just wait until I bite you. Food and drink to your heart's content." Konohamaru shrugged her off his shoulder without a word as he continued to search the stones. He picked one up of a similar shape and tried to mash it in, but it also did not fit. In his anger, he began to take that stone and push harder. Eventually, he let out a yell as he began just smashing the stone into the wall as if he could will it to fit, and oddly, it worked. He smashed it so hard that the stone broke, and when it did, the remnants fit into the hole. The girl behind him sighed. "Pooh, I really wanted you all to myself." Konohamaru would book it out of there ASAP. But why don't we take a break and check in on Sakura-chan real quick? Let's see where she is. Sakura's finally made it to Shikotsu Forest, and she's surprised to see that the forest is far larger than she had imagined. It's filled with giant sequoia trees, and even giant versions of other trees. It almost feels like she's but a bug in this forest. Her normal walking speed, which had carried her this far, was now suddenly seeming inadequate. She continued to follow her map, which would apparently lead to an underground spring. She walked for what seemed like forever, making very little progress. Even the grass here was larger. She weaved under massive leaves. It was as if she had been shrunk down to a miniature size, but as she did so, she would eventually find where she was going. Steam poured out of this tiny hole in the ground. As she entered, she felt the humidity, but she also began to smell something strange. It smelled like grains, boiling wort, and sulfur. That's just what her nose thought it smelled. Coming deeper, she discovered that this little hot spring had been transformed into a bathhouse and a makeshift brewery. She was smelling the process of them making beer. She would be led deeper to the sage himself. She would bow and introduce herself. To her surprise, the slug was very kind and welcoming, only stopping his conversation with her to take in more beer. He offered her some, and she feared being rude, so she accepted. She took one sip. There was the bitter and sour tastes of hops and fermentation, though there were traces of sweetness in there that tasted like citrus. The slug sage laughed upon seeing a foam mustache on his soon-to-be new apprentice. Sakura giggled and pointed out the sage's very own mustache, and the two chortled for some time. "And what did you say that your name was, little human?" the sage asked. "Sakura," she spoke up. "Sakura Haruno." The sage's eye stalks bounced a bit in excitement as she spoke. "Well, Miss Sakura, I believe this to be the start of a wonderful and most fruitful relationship." Sakura then asked what he would teach her, and the sage informed her that they did not teach senjutsu as the other sages did. Instead, they believed in storage, in storing one's power for use at a later time, to be prepared. It was then that he informed her that he would teach her the strength of 100 seal, as well as how to make use of healing chakra, as healing was one of the specialties of the slugs. "Of course, your body doesn't secrete the same types of fluids that ours does, so it'll be harder to teach you our ways, but we have many techniques for healing." And so Sakura continued her training. Naruto had a leg up on everyone, as he had already been training for days. He was past the preliminary stages of his learning and was now learning to take in nature energy, though his cheeks continued to pudge as he had yet to be capable of balancing it properly. But that was what the beat stick was for, just to beat that extra sage chakra out of him to help him find his balance. Back at Konohamaru's training grounds, he found himself walking alone in the darkness, when suddenly a snake girl rushed up from behind and bit his shoulder. He let out a cry and fell to one knee, holding his shoulder. He looked up. What was that for? He sees Jiraiya looking back at him. "I don't know. What was it for?" Konohamaru is startled. "Pervy sage." Jiraiya kneels down next to him and looks him over. "Shame. Real damn shame. I had thought that maybe Hiruzen might start a dynasty here. Produce at least one heir worthy of becoming Hokage, but you're just so weak." Konohamaru shook his head. "No, I will become Hokage." "Will you now?" came the voice of Asuma from behind. He looked back at Asuma. "Uncle?" Asuma looked back. "You really are pathetic. You thought that you had what it takes? You're ashamed of Hiruzen's legacy," he said, "and you're not ever going to become Hokage." A third voice came after Asuma's. Konohamaru looked back to the figure to find Naruto there. "I entertained your dream for a while, but it's time to face facts. Even if I gave up on my dream of becoming Hokage, you wouldn't have a chance. You're a watered-down version of Hiruzen, and you bring shame to everything that was the god of shinobi. You're a burden on me, your friends, your family, and everyone you know. But then again, you knew that. When we faced Orochimaru, I was the one having to defend you because you were so scared of that girl's vision. Being stabbed to death, she told you. Even still, you wonder if she really meant you and not Kabuto. You're paralyzed in fear, and because of that, you'll never amount to anything." Konohamaru growled. "Don't assume you know anything about me," he shouted at the shade of his friend. But suddenly, the gruff voice of a man he knew well spoke from behind him. "We know everything about you, grandson." Hiruzen stood there. "I never told you about your parents, did I?" Konohamaru looked back at him with terror in his eyes. "Or maybe you always knew." The specter of Hiruzen knelt beside him, one hand on the boy's shoulder, his eyes filled with malice. "They're still alive," he whispered to him. "They were always alive. They abandoned you because you were weak. You were not the child they wanted, so they dumped you off on me, and I, in turn, dumped you off on Ebisu. None of us wanted you. Ever. Why do you think Asuma didn't take you in after I was killed? Why do you think Ebisu never tried to stop you from leaving to train with Jiraiya? Even Jiraiya didn't want you there. He only agreed to take you so Naruto wouldn't be lonely. But even Naruto's grown out of you now. You're just a third wheel, a hanger-on. So why should you even walk out of this cave alive? Why are you fighting so hard? Nobody loves you. Nobody wants you. Maybe you should just die." Tears were rolling down Konohamaru's cheeks as he listened. So much of it made sense. He just sat there on his knees, his own arms crossing in front of him as if he were searching for a hug from himself. The specters of his past stood and gathered around him. "Just give in. Just choose to die. You'll save yourself and the rest of your friends a lot of trouble." Konohamaru sniffed a bit and took a deep breath. You're right. I am weak." The specter of Hiruzen began to smile nefariously, but suddenly that look in his eyes was robbed when he heard Konohamaru say, "But I know you're wrong. You're lying to me because I know Naruto. He fought to protect me when I was scared, not because I asked him to, but because he was scared to lose me. I'm still scared that I will die. I'm still scared of being stabbed. But if I had a choice to get stabbed to death or let my big brother Naruto down, I would choose to be stabbed. He refused to go train with Jiraiya without me, so I know he loves me. And Jiraiya-sensei does too. When I broke my arm, he wrapped it personally. When it ached at night, he let me sleep in his bed with him. Jiraiya loved me too, and I loved Jiraiya. He was my master, but he was also a friend, a part of my family. And Asuma? Well, I saved his life. He screamed out my name in fear when I got hurt doing so. And when "When you died, Grandpa, I was so sad, but I knew you loved me and wanted what was best for me, because your final order was to put me on Team 7 so I wouldn't be alone after you died. I am loved. I may be weak, but I'll fix that. I may be scared, but I'll face that. And as long as the love of my friends exists, I will too. I won't let you mess with my head. My parents, they were valiant Anbu agents who gave their lives in battle in defense of the village where their little boy lived, a boy that they named after the village of his birth. I carry the name of the very village I love, and I will not disgrace it by calling myself of no worth." He wiped his eyes and stood. "Nice try, but I'm not gonna let you destroy me." The image of Hiruzen seemed shocked, but smiled before transforming back into the third snake woman. The fog went away, and Konohamaru found himself in front of a temple. The woman before him smiled. "You passed my test. Normally I'd be upset, but after witnessing all of your self-doubt and fears, I know your heart is pure. And that is something so rare to find these days. You are worthy of meeting with the Snake Sage. Go on, I'll be there with you." Konohamaru let off a small, triumphant smile and climbed the stairs into the temple, where he found the white Snake Sage resting on a lounge. She seemed elderly and weak, but she exuded a sense of power. Her eyes watched as he stepped in with a smile on her face. "So rare are the worthy that I know you must truly deserve this power if you've come this far seeking it." Konohamaru nodded. "Yes, your excellency. I would be so honored if you would deem me worthy to learn your most treasured of arts." Impressed by the flowery nature of his speech, she knew that he must have learned it during his time in the Hokage's residence. She bid him closer with a finger. He came closer to her. "Turn away from me and kneel." Konohamaru would turn to face away from her and kneel just as she asked. She pulled on the sleeve of his shirt to expose his neck before sinking her fangs into it. He let out a cry as he felt the piercing pain and the flow of a poison so potent that it seemed his insides were turning to liquid. Once she'd removed her fangs from his neck, he crawled forward and stood. "What was that? I thought you were going..." He saw 3 of the sage and wondered if it was a trick. No, it was his own eyes. He felt lightheaded. A moment later, his legs went out from under him and he hit the ground. The snake sage then spoke. "He made it this far. Now let's see if his body is truly strong enough for this power, to go beyond his natural limits into far greater potential." Konohamaru was out, not just for hours, but for days. For a week, he was unconscious, fighting the inner demons in his heart as his body sat on a fence, trying to decide whether to accept this poison into its system or to merely give up and die. The process of deciding was as painful as the bite itself, and Konohamaru found himself unaware of how much time was passing. Under the orders of the White Snake Sage, the 3 girls who had tested him would be his personal servants, tending to his every need while his body fought to accept this new power. For the most part, his needs consisted of a cool rag to stave off the fever and a warm bowl to hold the food his body needed to burn for fuel. Each one possessed the utmost respect for him that was not present when he came to them. They too would offer their own poison, but not in a way as to harm him, but like a steroid to help his body grow strong enough to accommodate his new sage transformation. To them, this was the most powerful form of sage power to exist. While in the form, he would need to passively take in nature energy without the threat of turning to stone or needing to stay still, unlike the ability taught by the toads of Mount Myoboku. For those who weren't truly worthy of this power, even if they could access it, their organs would inevitably fail. But alas, that was what their poison was for. By slowly poisoning him throughout the course of his agony, they would help his body build a tolerance. And if ever he woke up from this, he would enter a world of power he had never known. For a week, Konohamaru agonized, but as the 7th day rolled around, his fever broke and he seemed to sleep in peace. One of the sages who had spent time testing him and further attempting to heal him would inform the White Snake Sage that his body accepted it. The White Snake Sage was pleased. "This should make a shinobi of wondrous power, perhaps enough to even rival the very Sage of 6 Paths himself." As time passed, Konohamaru would wake up in the bed he'd been allotted by the sage. He wiped the sweat from his brow as one of the sage women approached him. "It seems you've accepted the power." Konohamaru blinked for a moment. "I've learned sage mode?" The girl giggled. "Far more than that. You've gained a sage transformation, something far superior to mere sage mode, a form designed to help you better attain sage mode without the drawbacks that you get from Mount Myoboku." Kono grabbed his stomach. "Ugh, I feel like I'm gonna throw up." The sage once more laughed. "That is the effect of the poison. It should subside soon." Konohamaru looked up. "How long was I out?" The sage thought for a moment. "About a week. 172 hours to be exact." Konohamaru sat up in bed. "It was that long? I thought it was 2 days tops." The sage shook her head. "Time passes differently for those in the dream world. One may live a full life in but an hour-long doze, or they can spend 2 days in nonsense as years pass them by. It's better that you don't remember your week of agony, but thankfully that time is over. You're free to leave whenever you desire, but I recommend you stay one final night to rest." If you do, I ensure that you will feel better in the morning. Konohamaru nodded and proceeded to spend one last night with the snakes. The day after, he began to take in his breakfast and load up, preparing to return home. He would once more thank the white snake sage and prepare to leave, but she would stop him. The vision that girl had of you. Konohamaru stopped and felt his heart jump. Yeah? The sage continued. She saw that you would die by stab wounds. Konohamaru looked back. The sage continued. You will be the deciding factor of the future of your village. Unlike other fates, I see two paths you may take. One will lead to your own prosperity and the destruction of your village, but the other will lead you to ruin for the sake of your homeland. I see a blonde boy with tears on his cheeks and the eye of the Sage of Six Paths. May these powers you've received from us serve you well, and may the path of your destiny be one you climb without regret. Konohamaru nodded in thanks and began to leave. All the while, he thought deeply upon what Oba-san had said. It seemed that very soon he would have to sacrifice himself, and if he didn't, all he trained and fought so hard for would be destroyed. He was still fated to die, and that terrified him. Naruto would eventually finish his training, but as he did so, he'd be told that Konoha was under attack by the Akatsuki who were searching for him. The village was already devastated, though many yet lived. Naruto knew that it was of utmost importance that he hurry back to the village, but at the same time he knew that even if he ran off now, he would still take a month to get back. And so he decided to ask the Toad Sages if it were feasible to use reverse summoning. They nodded, and so Naruto was teleported back to Konoha almost immediately. But upon getting there, they realized that the leaf had been all but destroyed. The only thing left is the Hokage monument. He's then met by Pain, who stands there before him. That's fine. You've saved me the trouble of hunting you down. Naruto would leap off to meet him in battle, activating his Sage Mode. He begins to go all out, throwing his Rasen Shuriken at them. With his new control over nature energy, Naruto has gained the ability to utilize an even more powerful version of his own technique, and through this, he manages to even throw it. In doing so, he defeats the downside of his Rasen Shuriken, but it still consumes so much chakra. He can only use it maybe twice without running out, but that is what his other shadow clones are for. As he fights, he comes to learn that the Paths of Pain are resurrecting due to the Naraka Path's interference, and so Naruto makes taking out the Naraka Path his next priority. He creates a dust cloud and then sends shadow clones in as a diversion to attack the other paths while he himself launches himself into the air unnoticed to strike the Naraka Path. However, the fated winds of What If begin to blow and Naruto misses the Naraka Path, who suddenly jumps to the side to get away from the threat. The Diva Path stops and looks back, rather impressed with what Naruto has done. As the Toads rush to his aid, the Diva Path orders the Animal Path to deal with them, which she does with her summons. Naruto stands and prepares to attack once more, all the while Diva is ready. He utilizes his universal pull to drag Naruto to him before smashing him into the ground. He then stabs his hands with a chakra rod. As Naruto is left on the ground, Pain kneels by him. This pain you feel, it's the same that I once felt. My village was, like this, destroyed by another's hand. My friends, my loved ones, my parents and adopted family, they were all killed. I came to realize at that moment just how much pain there is in this world, a world that thrives off of hatred, off of the pain of others. I will teach them another way, but before I can, I must teach them the true meaning of pain. I will subject them to a war so brutal that they will not wish it upon even their worst enemy. And then, in the brotherhood of sorrow and pain, love and peace will bloom. You're a fool, Naruto cries up at him, his single Sharingan glowing. You think you can force people to be friends? I had a friend. I lost a friend. That was my first great pain. The first person to willingly be by my side and actually care if I was alive, if I was happy. It would have meant nothing to me if you'd been forced to do it. So I know when I tell you that your desires are hogwash. That's not peace, it's endless deterrence. Those two aren't the same thing. You dream of peace and quiet, but never mistake the two. Quiet isn't peace, it's just inactive war. Hate and pain will exist still, and people will suffer anyway. Naruto attempted to rise to his knees and painfully drag his hands up and off the spike. I'll make peace my own way, and I don't need you. I only need my friends. Pain thought this was admirable, and that his determination and conviction were nothing short of the same he himself had. Pain saw himself in this boy, but there was something separating them that Pain was certain he could crack. He just needed the right thing. He would strike Naruto in the back with his fist and place 6 more chakra rods down his back to hold him in place. Take the Nine Tails from him. If he will not join us willingly, he'll die. The other Paths of Pain gathered around to remove the tailed beast, but just at that moment, the Naraka Path went down, blown apart by a Rasengan. Naruto looked over. Standing there was Konohamaru. Naruto called out to him, "Little brother, run!" Konohamaru pulled his thumb across the tip of his nose as he winked at Naruto with a smile. You think I got these powers for nothing, Oni-chan? Naruto was stunned. Powers? Konohamaru closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Slowly, a cyan aura formed around him as his hair rose up a little. From his forehead came a single horn as his chakra congealed into translucent snakes. Pain looked on with curiosity. Another sage, perhaps? Konohamaru smiled. Indeed, but this is different from anything Oni-chan has hit you with. Be prepared. Konohamaru rushed in and began to strike out at all these 6 paths, his fists coated in chakra, his snakes covering every inch of himself that he couldn't see or couldn't catch. Konohamaru, without the help of even any of his shadow clones, was taking on the 5 remaining paths of pain. But suddenly, as he fought, a second Kono appeared beside Naruto and gently began to pull the rods out of his body. He hugged Naruto. I made it back just in time. Naruto looked up at him. Get out of here, please. I don't want you getting hurt. Konohamaru would smile at him. Same goes for you, big brother. The clone vanished as Naruto came to his knees. Konohamaru managed to take out the Asura path, leaving only Diva, Animal, Human, and Preta paths. Animal and Preta both attacked Naruto, with it being Preta's sole duty to take the Nine Tails from him. He grabbed onto Naruto and began to absorb his chakra, hoping to start taking the Nine Tails last. As Naruto found himself being drained, he called out and Shima would summon his final clone. That shadow clone would transfer its sage chakra to Naruto, which he would use to turn the Preta path into a stone frog before shattering it. But he was already so weak. The animal path continued to assault him with its summons, though a weak Gamabunta saw him struggle. At that moment, he threw his dagger out at the animal path, killing it. All the while, Konohamaru had just killed the human path, leaving only the Diva. With a sudden raise of his hand, Diva pushed Konohamaru back. He then looked at Naruto and raised his hand again, a multitude of chakra rods forming in the air around him. He began to launch them at him. Konohamaru would rush between Naruto and Pain, attempting to catch the rods with his snakes, and many he did, but in the end, Konohamaru would find himself perforated 5 times. Naruto lay there in the dirt. He looked up, his eyes transfixed upon Konohamaru standing before him. The sun shone down through the smoke and debris. Konohamaru had his arms out, his legs in a wide stance as his chakra snakes held the remaining chakra rods. As the chakra dissipated, the rods fell. He faltered a bit and stumbled. He hit his knees. Naruto rushed over and grabbed him and held him. Konohamaru let out a gasp and a cry. He looked at Naruto. Oni-chan, it hurts. It hurts. Naruto gripped Kono. Why did you do this? Why? Konohamaru's breathing grew quicker and more frazzled. I don't know, I just moved. His face grimaced as tears rolled down his cheeks. His voice was cracking as he spoke. Oni-chan, Oni-chan, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Naruto shook his head. Just stay with me, here. Konohamaru looked up at him. Please, don't let me die. His eyes rolled up into his head. Tears began to roll down Naruto's cheeks. Pain looked down upon them both. Only through pain will you understand. Naruto looks up at Pain, but something's different. His Sharingan has evolved into a Mangekyo. Pain sees this and feels some interest. Naruto lays Konohamaru down and stands, tears streaming down his face as he looks on. Suddenly he feels a pulsing pain, and for a second he thought he saw Sasuke standing with him. Suddenly, when his hand pulls from his eye, it is once more evolved. Pain is astounded. Is that the Rinnegan? The wind blows dust between them. You killed my little brother, he seems to whimper through a shaky voice. He suddenly cries out at him, and Pain is knocked back by an almighty push. Pain catches himself. Only the Sage of 6 Paths can achieve this dojutsu. Only the one who will bring peace to the world. The 6th Tomoe Rinnegan of Naruto seems to burn with the darkness, as suddenly the eternal flames of Amaterasu appear from it. Pain sees this coming, so he removes his cloak and throws it out in front of him to catch the flames. But to his surprise, Naruto suddenly utilizes Amanotejikara and changes places with Pain's coat, where he shoves a Rasengan into him. But this Rasengan is unlike any other. It's black as night, filled to the brim with 6 Paths chakra, an onyx Rasengan. Something not too far removed from a truth-seeking orb, and just like a truth-seeking orb, it explodes with incredible ferocity. Like a miniature nuclear explosion, Naruto jumps back and away from it. The Diva Path lays there for a moment as its broken body begins to stand. It weaves hand signs and he launches a fireball at Naruto. Naruto raises a hand and absorbs this jutsu with his new Preta Path. He then summons from out of the blue the Ghetto statue. Pain is terrified as he realizes Naruto has just hijacked his entire plan. The entirety of Project Tsukinome has fallen into Naruto's hands, along with all the progress that they had made up to that point. The Ghetto statue raises its hand and mercilessly strikes Pain, ending him. But all the same, Naruto knows that it's not over yet. He picks up a chakra rod and uses his Sage Mode to sense it and knows where it's coming from. Naruto then proceeds in that direction, into the trees nearby the village. As he does, he finds himself in a paper tree. He steps in as Konan and Nagato grow a bit defensive, though Nagato quickly relaxes and tells Konan to do the same, informing her that there is no way to fight him. Naruto stands there as tears stream down his face. You killed my little brother. I already lost a brother and you just took the other. Pain sits there. Do you hate me? Naruto sneers through glassy eyes. I hate your guts. I wish you were dead. Nagato nods. Then maybe you finally know pain. Maybe you're the person to replace me as leader of the Akatsuki. Like hell, Naruto shouts at him. Nagato seems confused. How can you say that after this? How can you not understand that this is the only way to stop other people from losing their villages and brothers like you have? Because I'm not a dumbass like you, Naruto shouted. Do you think that I don't know that war causes death? When I was in the academy, they taught us the warring states period. They had to. It was what spawned the beginning of the village. The Senju and Uchiha fighting endlessly. We don't even know the cause, and it's well reputed by those who knew the first Hokage that even the Senju and Uchiha didn't know why they were fighting. It was an endless war, an endless cycle of tit for tat, of vengeance and revenge. You can cause as much pain as you want, but it won't stop people from fighting. So long as 2 people or less are on this planet, there will always be a reason to kill somebody. You can't stop that. Nagato listened with intent. Naruto stepped forward. I want to kill you. I want to kill you. So damn badly. I want you to die, but I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not like you. I don't want to give into this cycle. I want true peace. That's why instead, I'm gonna drag you before the Hokage and demand that you answer for this. Nagato listened. Naruto continued. My eye? I received it from my first brother, my own big brother. He made me promise him that I would show him the world that I'd make. I'm gonna bring peace to this world in my own way, without killing, without giving into the cycle of hatred. I will save this world the way it was meant to be saved, through love. Just as Sakura taught me, just as Sasuke taught me, just as Konohamaru taught me. Nagato sat there in silence, but in that moment, he felt in his heart that he was right. Maybe I was right all along. You are the one to replace me as the daybreak for this world. But unlike me, you'll do it in your own way. You'll do it the right way. Naruto listened in. I will place all my faith into you, and into this new world which you'll show Sasuke. I wish to see it too, and I shall. Through the eyes of all those I'll resurrect. Konan turned to him. No, Nagato, don't. You'll die. Nagato looked to her. There's a time for everything to live, and a time for everything to die. I wish for my death to have impact, and to leave a lasting legacy as a founder of peace. And so I will return to the ways of Jiraiya, and I'll put my faith into Naruto and his friends. He puts his hands together and expends all of his chakra to summon the King of Hell to resurrect those killed by his hands. And in that moment, the souls of those who died were restored to their hosts. Nagato sat there, his hair as white as a spirit. He looked up at Naruto. I trust you. He then died. In the village, he lay there, Konohamaru's corpse devoid of blood and life. This was exactly as the White Snake Sage had said. He would one day die, stabbed to death. He could escape it, but if he had, Naruto would die and the world would be thrown into turmoil. He had died a selfless hero. But suddenly, as the King of Hell rose from the ground, a green light passed into him. He gasped as his eyes opened. He breathed deeply. There were still chakra rods in his body, but he felt no pain. He, for a second, wondered if he were dead, but he felt as if he were alive. It was then that a medic rushed over to him. I have him, the medic cried out. I found the honorable grandson. He's wounded, but alive. The medic looked down. This may hurt, but it's best in the long run. He began to pull all the chakra rods out. Tears came to his eyes as each one was pulled out, but he came to rest once the deed was done. The medic began to heal him. Konohamaru asked him what had happened, and the man said he had no clue. Konohamaru relaxed, but as he did, he looked to the side and saw Naruto coming. Naruto looked forward and saw Konohamaru. He rushed over to him and lifted him into his arms for a hug. Naruto gasped out a sigh of relief as tears of joy sprang from his eyes. I thought I lost you. Konohamaru, also in a particularly emotional mood, began to cry as he held onto Naruto. All the while, as the dust settled, Danzo and a detachment of Anbu were investigating the damage as well as the strange new structure in the center of the village. It's giving off chakra readings, sir. Tailed beasts. Danzo smiled. Wall it off. Allow nobody to see it until we can have it moved. The Anbu saluted their Hokage and began to set up tarps and build walls to hide this strange new discovery. Little did they know what they had. And that's the end of that. I had an absolute blast writing this one. Honestly, I wanted to save it for a little later since I have so many series going on right now, but I just couldn't resist because I had a good plot and I didn't want to accidentally forget it. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, be sure to tell us in the comments what your favorite part of the story was. We would love to hear what you thought. We would also love to hear what your beliefs are in regards as to where it would go and where you think it should go. Post-credit scene, anyone? As the dust settled and the sun began to set, Sakura returned to the village. She bore on her forehead the Strength of 100 seal, as well as all the healing jutsu that the Slug Sage had to offer, including the Creation Rebirth technique. Not only had her body grown immensely stronger, but it also grew functionally immortal so long as her technique was active. She couldn't wait to show the boys what she could do. She seriously began to think that she might have been the strongest member of their team at this moment. As she reached the village gate, she smiled and opened it up. "I'm back, baby!" she screamed out before promptly rolling down the incline of the crater left behind by Pain's almighty push. Once she reached the bottom of the crater, she looked around. Wait, what did I miss? She stood and sighed. It's a damn good thing that I'm perhaps the most talented healer in the history of Shikotsu Forest. I guess it's time to get to work. She made her way to the hospital, one of the few structures that had already been built by Yamato. On her way there, she passed by the ghetto statue, already covered and hidden. She had no idea what it was and didn't really want to find out. She simply hoped that everyone was okay. With added urgency, she rushed off to be of use at the hospital. Naruto will return in part 7.
Did you enjoy our video? Well, then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.